Hi, this is a compilation of a bunch of YouTube shorts. A different video about Spiral Knights will come out at some point. Also, I should note, I'm not exactly an expert. There are some channels with way more knowledge about this somehow still live game. Spark of Kill has his own level tier list, and it's from the perspective of a couple of endgame players. Also some weapon tier lists, check them out. Spiral Knights, the Clockwork Tunnels. We fight through a planet that seems to be made out of like 20 other planets vaguely smashed together. The regions are sectioned off into their own rooms, and the Clockwork Tunnels are the hallways that connect them. Many tunnel levels do seem like the planet's equivalent of like scaffolding. The tunnels act as a sort of an outline of a Spiral Knights level. Most are generic but also versatile. They very easily adopt the themes of a stratum. Stratums are sections of gates that are separated by clockwork terminals and towns. Each stratum usually has a theme of an enemy type or an elemental status that determines the levels and loot in a stratum. A fire stratum will have a lot of fire enemies, a slime stratum will have many slimes. The basic design of Clockwork Tunnels makes them very modular. On the other hand, the basic design doesn't stand out too much. In terms of loot, it's nothing special. There's not that much you can say about tunnels, and these levels can be sped through quite easily. But hey, a foundation is needed to build something good, and Clockwork Tunnels serve as a perfectly good foundation for everything else. See here. Deconstruction Zones. It's a fitting name. It's a level that's in the process of being demolished and scrapped for parts. Instead of winding tunnels with buttons and switches you need to press in order to progress, it's just an open floor plan with everything presented to you at once. You can aggro the entire level at once if you want. The exit is also just open. If you don't like the level, you can just leave. Besides fighting, the only thing to do is a key and lock chain. Just take it to the box gate. Almost all of the enemies here are gremlins. Large groups of them can get annoying in the deeper tiers, but they're mostly a non-threat and you have a lot of room to kite. All of this makes Deconstruction Zones quite unique areas. In terms of loot, lots of enemies equals lots of money, but there's only ever like one set of boxes in these levels. I like the concept, but you never aim for a Deconstruction Zone during an expedition. B tier. Candlestick Keep. The keep has amazing theming. It's really good as haunted castle hallways. It's all undeads here, mostly the ghost cats and some skeleton variants. The level's main gimmick is this invincible shadow cat and the candles. This thing can't be damaged, can't be blocked, can't be stopped. It deals a massive amount of relative damage and never loses aggro on you. I hated doing these levels when I was younger. This cat gave me so much anxiety. The only way to make it go away is with the candlelight. There's a Discord light mode joke in here somewhere. Some parts of the keep are lit up by the eternal blue flames, but most of it is in the dark. You need to throw a glob of fire at a candle to make a temporary safe haven. It can be stressful to play through, but once you figure out that the big shadow cat has a terrible turning radius, it's not that bad. The aesthetics of the place has really grown on me. Video. Scarlet Fortress. Apparently the origin point of the ghost cats. Don't know why this place has so many slime cubes. Most levels of Spiral Knights features you fighting your way through a bunch of corridors connecting some bigger rooms. Scarlet Fortress has some of this, but a bunch of the levels are just one big square you circle around. These are more like escape rooms to the other stages' walking trails. An odd thing about Fortress levels is that they seem to almost never appear in the third tier of gates. This level is on the slightly rare side. The theming is I think Candlestick Keep did a better castle. These two levels are kind of related. The ghost cats come from here and they are explicitly squatters in the keep. You don't actually get that much loot despite this being a castle. Usually only one or two sets of boxes and not that much money either. This feels like a tourist castle. D tier. Jigsaw Valley. In lore, this is where the gremlins get their lumber supply, and we are here to mess up the supply lines. Also, the home factory to these mechanical trees. The valley seems like the baseline of a certain archetype of levels, the floating isle subtype. Every level in this game is technically a floating isle, but this particular subset is directly just islands that float, mostly because it's a bunch of forest land and stone structures compared to factories and castles. The forest level is a well-known trope, but this isn't this game's forest level. It's a lumberyard. Grass is everywhere, but trees are sparse. It's all gremlins with axes alongside the machines they built. Honestly, this is one of the more positive depictions of gremlins I've seen. They're mostly just blue-collar workers. B2. Lichenous Layers, a floating island but a night. A meteor landed here. It contained alien glob slimes that can fuse with each other and grow stronger. This place seems to be a former Jigsaw Valley that was overrun by slimes. You can see this in the greenery that seems to have slightly grown back. There's an increase to the amount of poisonous vines and bushes. Slimes spawn in these bushes almost like they're setting up an ambush. The alien slimes have a fusion mechanic. If two attack each other, they become one. If enough fuse, they can evolve into stronger and stronger slimes. You can prevent the fusion by popping the slimes when they're still small. The timing of the fusion seems quite generous for the slimes. It's a pretty neat enemy gimmick. The game tells you to pop the slimes while they're small to prevent the hard mini-boss from spawning. The big slime is actually easier because it's one guy instead of 10 and he's very kiteable. Loot-wise, if you don't squish the kid slimes, you get an average amount of loot. If you do squash the children, it's slightly above average. This place has neat theming. The Blob is a decent enough movie. B tier. Starlight Cradle, the most unique of the floating isle subtype. The Cradle alongside the Concrete Jungle and Dark City are usually in mini-sets, meaning they usually appear 3 times in a row, and the third level is an arena stage. This game has 6 status effects: Stun, Poison, Shock, Fire, Freeze, Curse, and Sleep. Most levels in this game have a status theme. Usually it's one among the 4 of Poison, Shock, Fire, or Freeze. The levels with no status theme defaults to Stun. There are no levels with a theme of Curse, and Starlight Cradle is the only level type that has a theme of Sleep, and I can see why. Sleep is so much stronger than the others. You're out for like 10 seconds. It's not that strong of an effect when you use it. Enemies wake up fast, but I'm forced to power nap my way through being impaled. These ambient slimes can devastate you, and good luck using melee on the big ones. They leave a trail of chloroform. You have to be so careful here. That being said, being set up as a semi-boss area means it has a good amount of loot. The theming isn't too bad. B tier. Devilish Drudgery. Turns out hell is an office job. I think this is one of the game's most unique gimmicks. The grunt worker is weak and squishy but plentiful, and these pit bosses are completely harmless. However, the managers can go up to the grunts and roll a dice for you. If they have to come in on Sunday, they go mad. If they get a hint of a promotion, they turn into yes men. Completely harmless but very fat. You can try to save the grunts from talking to the manager, but these levels are designed to delay you. Whacking a pit boss also has some effects. All yes men in range will get angry, while one angry worker will turn into a pit boss. You have to be careful on when and where you whack your terrible manager. It's kind of like office politics, but with less impulse control and more swords. Multiple yes men can turn homicidal, but only one guy can get therapy. You need to be decent on micro when deciding which manager deserves it the most. The chain of promotion is random and nonsensical. At least the pay is decent. I like it. Office worker is the career path that's the closest to devil worship. A tier. Concrete Jungle, part of the city level trio. This one is abandoned and nature has started taking back its territory. Whatever residents that used to be here are gone. It's now taken over by slimes and zombies. The main theme is poison. Poison is a bit different in Spiral Knights. It doesn't damage you over time. It negates all healing and lowers your attack stat. It's arguably the weakest enemy status effect. Fire damages over time, shock damages over time and flinches you, stun slows you, freeze roots you, curse doesn't really exist, and sleep just means it's over. It's a bit like food poisoning. This level is quite easy, being themed around weak effects and kiteable enemies. There's actually a good amount of loot here, and mission A2 will directly take you to a concrete jungle set that's at the perfect depth for grinding 4-star fire crystals. This is likely the first place where you see totems, which can revive any skeleton that dies within its range. Besides that, there isn't that much of a gimmick. Everyone is toxic, the roads are falling apart, and weed is everywhere. It's a classic Rust Belt city. A2. Dark Cities, New York but with more Wicca people. This place feels like an extension to the office levels. Like a regular office is a suburban branch building and this one is the big city main office. It's a usual mix of grunt workers and pit bosses, but this place's pet policy must be pretty lenient and everyone must be terrible owners cause ghost cats are everywhere. They are much stronger than any of the tiny office workers. These two are some of the most dodgy enemies you can find. They dash constantly and deal a good amount of shadow damage. That being said, the Sleepy Islands are still harder by a wide margin, mostly because this place doesn't have a status theme. You would think it would be cursed considering the aesthetic. There's ritualistic markings in a lot of areas and plenty of crystal blocks to give a more occult vibe, but I think the devs realized that curse is far too annoying of a status effect for it to be consistently applied to you. This place has fairly good loot like the other level set regions, but it's pretty annoying to fight through. B tier. Compounds. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it so much. Easily the worst level type. The reason? These tiny guys. They spawn in giant groups and they are the most annoying thing in the world. All of them are so frustrating to hit. They're everywhere and they never drop anything. The worst part is, more often than not, you can't even one-shot them. They spawn in huge groups, sometimes they respawn infinitely, but they still might take 2 or even 3 hits to stomp out. This is partially due to the fact that playing on the hardest difficulty is basically required if you want any decent loot. Speaking of loot, there's no money to be made here. Half of any compound level is just filled with these mini guys that give you nothing. It's not like there's a particularly high number of boxes here either. This place is way too annoying to play and you don't get much for playing it. F tier. Wolveren. Alright, here's the generic forest level. There's not much to say. It's the most boring theme. There's a lot of bushes here, but not the kind that drop stuff. You fight some puppy wolves in a forest. It's all beast type enemies and those healer butterflies. This is possibly the easiest level in the game. The dogs have incredibly telegraphed attacks and take forever to take a swing at you. They're very agile and can teleport around, but their attack speed is surprisingly slow. They can easily be flinched. Wolvers are more threatening when they are paired with other types of enemies. The teleporting around they do can body block you quite badly, which can screw over your movement, but dogs themselves attack too slowly to take advantage of their body blocking. Dogs rarely land hits and even then they don't do that much damage. You can breeze through this level. In exchange, this is also the worst level in terms of loot. Dog fighting does not pay. D tier. Graveyard. Yeah, it's exactly what it says it is. It's just 2 enemies here, the skeletons and this spectral knight. A skeleton will spawn if you walk close to their grave, and the spectral knight will periodically come after you, respawning infinitely. This is meant to be a bit of a dud level. Some parts are specifically built to slow you down. Whenever you take the elevator, it'll usually tell you what level will be next. If you don't like what's next and have some extra time, you can just wait until it cycles forward one. This is not the case with graveyards. It's a literal question mark. The graveyard is always paired with treasure troves. It's a graveyard, a trove, and 1 or 2 random levels, and you cannot aim for any of them. It's up to chance. Treasure troves are very desirable, mostly because they have an insane amount of boxes. Graveyards, on the other hand, have the least boxes of any level type. In exchange, you can get a surprisingly high cash flow from here. I mean, it can still low roll, but this is arguably one of the best levels for farming straight cash. This alone makes it better than most levels. Grave robbing makes a lot of money. A tier. The Treasure Trove. Absolute jackpot. This is the second most desirable level in the game. Besides some weak chameleons, there's no enemies here. It's just boxes and crystals, so you have plenty of opportunities to roll for stuff. This area is just one giant loot square. That's likely why troves are harder to come by. You can never tell when a treasure trove is coming up, and they're always paired with the chance of encountering a graveyard. In a sense, this place is the opposite of a graveyard. Lots of boxes, but troves don't actually give that much total cash. That said, boxes are far more valuable. You just have to keep spinning that slot machine. There's also a subtype, Treasure Vaults, which gives you an option to fight box mimics and a giant mimic in a bank heist themed level for even more loot. It's a tougher fight than you would expect. Vaults are quite different, but I'm going to group these two together because they get the same tier, and definitely not because I forgot about vaults. S tier. The Battle Arena. This stage wins, uncontested best. The most boxes of any level, plus an insane amount of money to be gained. This is likely why it's a relatively rare location. It's just fighting here. No puzzles, no key gates, no mazes, and no exploration. You just move upwards, fight some enemies in 2 disconnected waves and collect some loot. Do that again for some more loot, and then a third time in a spiked arena for even more loot. Most of it is optional. You can just leave after the first arena, but you often want to complete them all anyway. Its theming is, as one can guess, an arena, fighting for sport. It's a 1v50 and it's completely unfair for the 50. When most levels are a combination of puzzles and fighting, it's pretty neat for at least one level type to be just fighting. Technically, half the game is gone, but it's fun to just play with the game's combat for a bit. Also, yeah, loot is king, and this level is the king of loot. S tier. Glooming Woods. I thought this icon was a jaw. It's actually just a tree, likely the first boss levels you will come across. It's pretty good. A dark forest full of angry beasts and undead. A giant shadow dog stalks you the entire time, and will sometimes slam into you to make sure that it is known that it doesn't like you. The atmosphere of this level is wonderfully done. It has its own unique gimmick in these stunning bells. The boss fight itself is This edgy dog is normally immune to all damage, but the bell can temporarily make him golden and vulnerable. Most of the fight is spent standing shields up in the middle unmovingly, just waiting for this thing to get in range of the bell. The bell has a lengthy cooldown. If you're playing with new players and they just hit the bell at random, this fight will take so much longer. It was me, I did that. I would like that random veteran player to know that I'm sorry. I was dumb and 11. You don't really come here in the endgame. The loot just doesn't stack up. At least the level itself is cool to play through. B tier. Royal Jelly Palace. Of the 4 arcade bosses, the Slime Palace is my favorite. It's a siege against a gelatinous monarch. We clear out sections of a castle and take down the guards until we manually guillotine a king. The Vanaduk boss fight is also a siege of a castle, but it's against one already in ruins. I prefer ransacking a live castle, even if the one on fire has better loot. It's all slimes and constructs here. It does feel like we're fighting against a country of slime cubes, and this is a raid against their capital. We start out in garden areas and slowly move into the inner chambers, looting any storage rooms along the way. King Slime himself is actually a rather awkward boss fight. The moments of invincibility messes up the pacing a bit. You're heavily encouraged to bring poison, as the main gimmick of the fight is that King Slime can absorb the small slimes to heal. Poison him to prevent the healing and he's a fairly easy fight. It's a boss area, so there's a lot of loot, and it's a perfect grind spot for mid-tier embers and alchemy orbs. A tier. The Factory, aka the incarnation of an OSHA violation. As you can expect from a place that makes machines and is run by gremlins, you will mostly encounter gremlins and machine enemies here. I presume this factory is what the Deconstruction Zones and Clockwork Tunnels used to look like before they got scrapped or turned into transport lanes. Of the 4 arcade bosses, this one is the most puzzle-like. You're not being stalked by a wild predator or raiding a themed castle, you're fighting the factory itself. This place is filled with workplace hazards, and if regulation still existed, everyone in this factory would be rich from a court settlement. Like a good 40% of the factory is missiles. The main thing you do here is use the switches to manipulate the rockets to help navigate this ammo depot. The boss itself is a big spectacle, and they feel like an extension of the factory, but it's based around getting the twins to hit each other and can be a bit of a waiting room. Still, it's a good overall package. A tier. Firestorm Citadel. If you make it to endgame, you will be here. This is the main grind spot for 5-star embers and orbs. It's 5 stages compared to the usual 3, which means it'll take longer to do, but each area will have plenty of loot. Honestly, it kind of borders on too long. On average, it's fine, but if you're feeling a bit tired, it can drag on. It definitely feels like a final boss moment, even if Vanaduk himself is fairly irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. It's a raid on a burning fortress against a monarch that has lost his kingdom and his mind, so it's like an average Wednesday in France. The stages here feel surprisingly connected. You start by fighting your way through the initial defenses outside the burning castle. Stage 2 has you saving a bunch of water fairies, which nets you some magic water. You use that water to put out the magic fire in Stage 3. Stage 4 is filler, and Stage 5 is reserved for the 5-phase boss fight. The Vanaduke fight is a mix of a straightforward brawl in a collapsing building and a mild bullet hell. If you're bad, like me, you might have to use a Spark of Life. The settings and themes here are just well executed, S tier. Dreams and Nightmares, the final level of Spiral Knight's main story. Heading into the core, we encounter the world's template, the literal building blocks in their unfinished forms. It's a kind of clever usage of, I assume, the base models of a bunch of the game's assets. The world is living Play-Doh, and we're seeing what it looks like unmolded. In terms of grinding out 5-star embers and orbs, this level is as good, if not better, than Firestorm Citadel, mostly because it's a shorter level set. Downside is, no one here drops cash, and it's kind of annoying to play. Please just finish your dialogue. Thankfully, it's easier than Firestorm Citadel. Most projectiles are predictable, and the slimes are the only threatening enemies. I wanted to do more story levels, but that would take way longer. Anyway, Dreams and Nightmares is a clever concept for a level and has exceptional loot, but gameplay itself is not the most fun. A tier.